If you are listening to this, that means you are listening to the Dr. Pearlman Podcast. And I just want to say thank you. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, I hope that this podcast provides you with some education, information, or maybe some inspiration in some way, shape, or form. But at the very least, if you get a little bit of a laugh or smile, then to be honest, I feel good about what I'm doing. Everybody, welcome back to the Dr. Pearlman Podcast. And through the last week, I just wanted to kind of bring my new thoughts, my new impressions about podcasting and video consumption in general. So before I even engage with Russ Powell, my distinguished guest and co-host on the Dr. Pearlman Podcast, Dietary Diaries, it is that a lot of people bring a lot of fluff that I think they need to bring, even if they're not sponsored, and we are not sponsored by anybody. So I just want to jump right into the content. No cliche this, no waste of time that. You are here, you logged on because it has a title or a catchy title, or I let the viewers know we're ready to go. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So Russ, welcome back. And
yes, thank you for having me again.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
And today we are going to piggyback off of our first episode, and we are going to talk about inflammation, understanding what inflammation is, and how diet and exercise both play a role in negating or eliminating inflammation and also contributing to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely think it's a good segue from our previous conversation about, what is inflammation from a chronic disease, type perspective in terms of certain types of disease they stemming from inflammation.
Right.
And so that could lead one to believe that we should eliminate inflammation entirely, and that's not the case. It's a necessary evil, but the issue is that we're not controlling the levels of inflammation and not allowing it to do its job, because we're adding other things to it, especially in the topic of this podcast, the sense of overtraining, as a way to either try to get a outcome quicker or fighting against something mentally where you feel like you should be at a particular level in your performance or whatever. I can speak to that personally there. So that we're going to kind of go into that in terms of how to balance inflammation and in terms of things that we can control, which is what we put in our mouths, but also to how we train, as well. And
to sort of build on that, a lot of people are under this impression that they can eat a nutritious diet and that they can exercise, and somehow that's like an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And I heard somebody actually recently, I've been listening to like a ton more podcasts because now this is part of my life again, part of our lives. And it was just amazing to me. They're like, exercise is so good for you. Exercise is the number one thing that's going to like contribute to longevity, and it's anti-inflammatory or something. And so I just thought about it for a minute. I was like, wait a minute. Exercise, intentional exercise, is pro-inflammatory. So I want all the listeners to understand that is an actual fact, that exercise is inflammatory. You are giving yourself a biomechanical and neurological musculoskeletal impact or insult. And the minute that foot strikes, the minute that bicep curls, the minute you squat, the minute you do a deadlift, whatever it is, you're outside running, you're cycling, your body is going into an inflamed state. You're stimulating norepinephrine, cortisol, stress hormone. Your muscles are beginning to break down, fibers are tearing, and your body is going through a stressful time. It is actually something that is known as hormesis, which is microdosing to be able to get your body to like homeostasis, which is kind of a little bit of a different topic, but your body is building resilience to be able to tolerate load and work over time for longevity. And again, adaptation, a body's ability to adapt. So don't think that by exercising, you should be in like less pain, which Russ, like we were talking about before the podcast, it's about progression. Mm-hmm. It's about like onboarding into a certain level of tolerance so your body can recover.
Absolutely. Inflammation is a necessary evil as part of exercise. Mm-hmm. Inflammation is a natural process that our body responds to injury or stress. It's just part of the healing process to match whatever is going on. From an exercise perspective, if you, let's say, upped your weight load that you're lifting, right? So that's a new demand, a new load that your body's trying to get used to. So before it was probably knocking out, let's say 25-pound dumbbell curls with no problem. And then now you bumped it up to say 35. So now you're going to feel a little bit more soreness, have a little bit more inflammation because you have increased the demand, the load that those muscles are having to take on. So yeah, you're going to be a little bit inflamed because the body's like, okay, more work that I need to do. I need to rebuild these muscle fibers stronger, thicker, so that way I can match that load. So it is the body's natural way of healing ourselves and preparing ourselves for the next challenge. I.e., if you get sick, you get inflamed, those white blood cells go to that site of injury, right, to help rebuild and repair. And it's going to remember, okay, I was sick and this is what I did next time. So the next time that you're maybe dealing with the same issue, is not as painful. The duration is not as longer because you built up that muscle memory. So it is our body's natural way of preparing us for the next thing, whether it's lifting more weights or, responding to an injury or however. So yes, it is the body's natural response to stress because exercise is stressful. It's stressful.
Fitting it in the schedule is stressful enough.
Yes.
Let alone the actual okay, so say you're 30 something, 40 years old, whether you have children or not, you've worked, you've got to get the workout in, or maybe you're like my wife who religiously goes to the gym at 4:30 a.m. every single day. It's hard. You got to get out of bed. Those muscles are achy. You got to kind of get in the groove. You warm up. You get your, fitting in the exercise to actually, get it stressful enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to some of the, I guess, purposes, reasons why people weight lift or do whatever, obviously, typically, you want to build muscle, right?
Yeah.
And the building of muscle happens with those microscopic tears. That's the only way we build muscle.
Yeah. I mean, building muscle is a breakdown and rebuild process.
Facts.
And, a lot of other people who may not be as well read as me or you over time and also have personal experience in working out, they might think that more is better. More is better.
Facts.
I got to work out. I've got the big one is doing squats, 3 times a week or something. Or if I do calves every day, there's this folklore in muscle and fitness and bodybuilding community, do calves every day. I can tell you that if you are building a muscle, hypertrophy, to build a muscle in size and also for the max output that would be associated with that as well, muscle needs adequate rest in order to get stronger and bigger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the magic is in the recovery. Yeah. And I know that could be against, traditional belief, that you have to keep pounding, but you definitely, because that muscle needs time to rebuild and recover, and that inflammation needs time to settle down, so that way it doesn't become an issue long term where you just continuously breaking down. So yes, absolutely. So in terms of the chronic inflammation that we see from repetitive, intense, exercise, no recovery, hitting these muscle groups all day, how is that detrimental long term in terms of performance?
Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to answer your question, then I want to talk about something food related.
Sure.
Just briefly to really paint a picture for the audience about inflammation in food. So to answer your question, if you never give your body, just on a musculoskeletal level, time to repair and grow, right? Repair, rest, repair, you will never get the desired result. You will always be under a constant amount of stress and breakdown to where injury will set in, aka inflammation will go to the site of injury, and you will never have the progress in which you seek. That's sort of the answer because I just believe that to be true. Clinical experience has taught me that it's true. My own personal experience has taught me that it's true. And I think the data out there backs it up for sure.
Awesome.
The second thing I wanted to just say, and this is a little bit off topic, but not really, because we kind of, I think, left the audience without the big cellular picture when it comes to food and how it creates inflammation. And I had an aha moment years ago, and this is the way I love to paint it, because I'm more of that, low carb advocate, if you will, because that's what I respond best to. Believe me, I am not a ketogenic or paleo evangelist. I am a whatever works for you, and using certain diets, if you will, quotation fingers diets, to get things accomplished. So here it is. Say you are trying to be a healthy, non-inflamed version of a human who is optimal, right? Optimizing health, optimizing nutrition. You go to the store and you cook yourself an organic, grass-fed, grass-finished steak, and you're sitting at your dinner table with your family, and you have a nice bed of spinach or some broccolini, and you saute everything up in the healthy butters, none of the seed oil, right? All the people out there, oh, it's the seed oil. Okay, right. You're eating a healthy meal. And you alluded to last week, you don't want to have the blood sugar fluctuate up, right? You don't want to have these big spikes. We want the slow absorption.
Right.
So you're doing everything right. You're eating that steak, everything's slow absorption. You're enjoying time with your family, but then you just can't help it. You want to have that sweet bun towards the end of your meal to help make it just easy. You want to, what do I call that when you dip in the au jus, right? You want to dip your bread into the sauce and then maybe have some dessert. Well, here's what happens once you've done the right thing by eating the right meal and the right quantity and everything I've just alluded to, and then you have a massive spike of blood sugar that calls for all this insulin. And what happens is particles in the body that then weren't the vascular, if you will, right? So the blood flow, your vessels aren't constricting all that hard. But then you ate that food that creates that massive fluctuation, and what happens is you get this reactive oxygen species. What's the word we like to use for that? The reactive oxygen species. What do they call those?
Radicals?
The radicals, the free radicals. Thank you. It's been so long since I've said free radicals, and all of a sudden, this cholesterol that's moving the fatty particles from the meat you just ate, right? And from anything you just ate, any fat, right? From cell to liver, back to cell to liver, this beautiful cycle of cholesterol, all of a sudden those particles get oxidized. And then that creates this constriction and this stress and this plaquing. And if y'all follow what I'm saying, now that I probably kind of rabbit holed a little bit, but I am trying to paint this picture for imagine an inflammatory environment created by a bad decision in a meal that you knew was a bad decision. Mm-hmm. That's inflammation. I just painted exactly what's happening within the arteries, within the veins, within, on a cellular level, of the cycle of triglycerides being transported by cholesterol molecules. And why am I even using the term cholesterol? Because you'll go and get a panel. Someone will tell you your cholesterol is too high, your triglycerides are too low, your triglycerides are good, your HDL is the good cholesterol, your LDL is the bad cholesterol. And well, boom, now you see how it's happened real time in a meal. And I just had to do that because it popped into my head. I said, we didn't do this last week. This is my claim to fame, is how I describe inflammation via food. So there
it is a cyclical pathway for sure, in terms of how it all works together. Yeah. And I see that a lot when I coach all levels of fitness, and I see people who work out all the time and their cholesterol panel is not the greatest, because they have not really looked at their diet contributing to this inflammatory process, that could be leading for them to have, elevated LDLs. Now, mind you, what's protecting them is their high HDL, because they work out a lot. So they do get that cardio protection there. But no. So no, I'm happy that you painted that picture, because it all aligns, back to our previous topic where you can't out-train.
Cannot out-train a bad diet.
You cannot out-train a bad diet, and not just from a weight management perspective, but also a recovery, rebuilding, and repairing perspective as well. Especially if you feel like you're just achy all the time. Yeah. You can't hit any new PRs. And I see that a lot with clients who come to me who've been working out for years, and they still lifting the same weight they've had for years. They're like, I just feel like I'm maintaining, I can't go up. And we start making the adjustments in their diet to more anti-inflammatory foods, things that have that slow burn and working with their body. They're like, I feel great. I hit a new PR. I haven't hit this in years. And
it's because you're training, and you know what you're doing. It's because you're training.
Right.
No, you do. You're training their body to have this steady state of energy.
Yes.
Instead of these fluctuations that lead to crashes. And that crash, which I just hopefully eloquently, put it into a perspective of what's happening on a cellular level. How do you expect to feel if you consistently do this to yourself?
Right.
Which is why one of my other podcasts back in the day, and I think we talked about it too, people will say, oh, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating healthier, I made this right choice. It's like, what else are you eating? Like, what else? What else? It's okay. Like, I'm not saying you can't have some form of a sugary substance at some point, but think of this consistency over the longevity and what it's doing to you and how you feel. And then don't expect to progress with your exercise. Don't expect to progress in other areas of your life if this is what you consistently are doing to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, going back to the nutrition part, it's like that not fueling your body properly with the right nutrients, you know, as well as the right energy, you know, in terms of the macros, can definitely hinder the healing process, prolong the inflammation. So something that normally should take you about, you know, a day, you know, to recover. Now we're looking at day 3, day 4. You still feeling the effects of Monday's exercise. And now here we are on a Thursday, you know, you're still feeling it because you chose to eat foods that were pro-inflammatory, that kept that inflammation, basically fed the cascade of inflammation and just drew it out. So now your body's under 2 stressors: the recovery from the exercise and trying to recover from the food that's also inflammatory. So it's adding little sticks to the fire, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Now you got a bonfire, you know, from what you're eating there. So it's just as in the food is so important in terms of the cellular level to help you rebuild, repair, and hit that next performance level. Because your body can't rebuild muscle in a fiery condition. Like, it's not.
And speaking of the fire, I know I had sent you a podcast that I thought would be great for both of us to watch before we set up to do this. And I'm so bad with names. I'm just, my memory. You see, I couldn't even remember to say free radical. Like, free radical is like the hottest thing in like nutrition and inflammation. What I was going to say is, he said, everyone is looking for a particular way to put out the fire instead of just getting out of the house. And it's funny because like what you're saying, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing you say, really, my Yoni interpretation, the Dr. Pearlman interpretation is get out of the house. Like, you know, we're laying out the groundwork. Like, we know these are the nice, nutritious, you know, foods. And you know, if you just start doing this, it's sort of like getting out of the house. You won't get burned, you know? And that's really what it is. It's like, it's not just that like one cookie. It's not just because you tried to PR that one day. It's not because you woke up in the morning and your back was so sore that one time that you slept wrong, which, by the way, I'm put out there so you guys will get to know the real me the more you listen to the podcast. I hate when people say I slept wrong. I hate it. There's no such thing as sleeping wrong.
It's not.
No, it's impossible to sleep wrong. Because if you are asleep and your body's in rest and repair mode and you're actually getting sleep in your bed, which, by the way, 9 out of 10 of us, maybe 9 3/4 of us listening to this podcast sleep in a bed. We are comfortable asleep with a roof over our head, thank God. You cannot sleep wrong. Now, if you're on a couch and you're just dog shit exhausted, and all of a sudden that head falls over like this, flex forward where it hits the thing, and you feel like your neck might have snapped or whatever, where you're so exhausted, and that you're like, that happens. You know, we've all been there where we're watching a movie on the couch and your neck snaps. Yeah, you slept wrong.
Okay.
There's a mechanism of injury attached to that. That's a totally different thing.
Because of how you positioned your body.
Yeah. And again, and now someone could listen to exactly what you just said and they could say, well, you just said I can't sleep wrong, but the position of the body sleep. No. I'm saying if you are sitting up in a chair and you have gotten to the point that you're so exhausted that you're inappropriately falling asleep because like, hey, you know, you got to rest. But hey, we both know this. If we're eating good and we're not burning the candle at both ends and we didn't just like spike our blood sugar insulin, we're not falling asleep watching a film. We're falling asleep watching a flick when we're eating candy, when we're having licorice, when we're eating popcorn, we're drinking soda, and maybe we have some NyQuil, you know?
Really?
In my opinion, in my experience.
Okay, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can debate me on that and say, hey, sometimes I just do everything right and I'm just exhausted as a mother and then I fall asleep and snap my neck on the couch.
It happens.
It does.
It does happen. Or your mattress could be bad, but I mean, that's not alignment. Well, that can have alignment with your body if you're bad mattress. So
I would say, you know, it's so funny. I swear this is so true. You can check my text message. 2 seconds before we hit the record button for this podcast, my mother texted me from Baltimore and said, your aunt wants to know what's a good mattress for her to buy. I know that you know this feeling because us healthcare professionals, we get put in these boxes.
Well, yeah.
I'm the posture guy. I'm the back guy.
Did you give a recommendation?
No, we have a podcast to record, and I will not and I'll give you my answer, and if she listens to this, she'll know my answer. Go to the store and spend some time on one, and the one that feels comfortable, just get. And then guess what? If it's too firm, get a soft topper. And if it's too soft, get a firm topper.
Really?
Yes. That's how I pick my mattress.
That's how you pick your mattress.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I had mattress related pain for a long time. I just use quotation fingers, everybody. For a long time. Well, as it turns out, I had spinal stenosis for 15, 18 years, 20 years, whatever. I think that had more to do with my back pain in the morning than the mattress. Because now when I wake up, maybe I'm sore, but it's not like, oh, I need a new mattress. So that's the answer. Whatever's comfortable.
Well, since we're on position,
should
you sleep on your back or should you sleep on your stomach or your side? What is best?
I will give you the real chiropractic doctor, biomechanical, science expert answer. And that is whatever's comfortable. That's the real answer. But I understand that doesn't answer your question or appease most of the audience who may want to know this. Sleeping on your back in a neutral position, assuming you don't have any sleep apnea pre-existing fears. Okay, yeah, that's right, people. I think about this stuff. You should probably be on your back, neutral, nice, comfortable. You should be fine. Otherwise, I would say sleep on your side.
Okay.
Especially if you've gotten an x-ray from a chiropractor or in your life and you actually see where what we call the convexity is, the bowing of the spine. You actually want to sleep on the side that is bowing, the high side of the rainbow, the convexity, so that it can actually sort of melt in, almost like a corrective scoliosis sleep, if you will. Now, I don't have any evidence to back it up except for one institute that did a study where people side bridged on the side of the convexity so that they could straighten their spine where there was a small degree of the Cobb angle of the curve. There was a small amount of correction in degrees.
Okay.
That's a side note. So yes, sleeping on the side that you are most comfortable would be my number 2. Pillow between the legs, with or without back pain. I think it helps.
Yeah.
Last would be sleeping on the stomach. And the only reason you should not be a stomach sleeper, and this, by the way, I know nothing about if you're pregnant, going to be pregnant, stomach sleeping, nothing about that, is that when your spine is in extension passively, over time, sinking in, even though it decompresses the spine and it's healthy for the discs, you'll develop something that's called facet syndrome, where your lower back facets, where the joints sort of slide and glide in the lower back, will actually be in this extended passive state to where when you get up, your back will be more achy over time.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's my issue. I sleep on my stomach.
And
with my hands under me. I'm just like.
Do you wake up with back pain?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
It's probably a contributor to it, yeah.
I've always slept that way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So sleep is kind of prescriptive is what I'm hearing. Depending on your issue, certain sleeping positions may be advantageous.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. So you know me, you know me well, and you've also, I've seen you where your back's been kind of acute where you were locked up.
Yeah.
I tell everybody all the time, when you come into me where your back is pre-existing, potential spinal stenosis, the spinal nerve roots are impinged, maybe a disc bulge or herniation, everything changes. This whole conversation of whatever's more comfortable turns into very specific guidelines. So I want to make that very clear. I am very comfortable saying that I am an expert in lower back spinal acute injury conditions, and that becomes I have a whole sheet at my office that was geared towards exactly how to rehab an acute disc, including sleeping positions.
Okay, I didn't mean to get you off track.
No,
it's
okay.
But I know we were talking about inflammation, and and you mentioned about sleeping wrong and all that, which leads into kind of the same same note. Sleeping and inflammation.
Yeah.
What's the connection there? Because it's something that I preach all the time from a blood sugar management perspective. For those who are just now meeting me, I am a registered dietitian that specializes in diabetes management. Sleeping, and the studies have proven, And that sleep deprivation, not getting your 7 hours of sleep, however, can increase the risk for insulin resistance, even if you don't have any history, of it, just because of the prolonged inflammation and the changes in hormones, all of that. But what's your thought process from a recovery standpoint for exercise and performance?
So I'm glad you asked, because as soon as you started talking about sleep and you mentioned 7 hours, I think everyone should go and watch a video series on YouTube called MedCram, and it's called Sleep Efficiency.
Okay.
And he talks a lot about studies or two separate groups in studies that one was, going to be sleeping 6, 7, 8 hours, and one was in like deep sleep, right? I forget if it's REM or not REM sleep. I'm not I'm not a sleep specialist, rapid eye movement. Mm-hmm. So what I do know, and from my own experience, deep sleep where I'm drooling on the pillow, and what I consider restfulness, even if it's 4 to 5 hours of like very good sleep efficiency, but maybe I tossed and turned for a couple of hours, or then maybe fell back asleep and then got up when my alarm clock went off. I believe efficient sleep and deep restful sleep is more important than this like recommended 7, 8 hours, whatever that means. I don't even think that somebody who has a side hustle and a main job, or a job that has a lot of demand on them, I don't think it's even possible to get 7 or 8 hours of real sleep.
So you're saying focus more on the quality versus the quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you alluded to this about, someone with sleep apnea, or whatever. Yeah. They could be asleep, but it's not restful sleep because they have, periods where they're just not breathing, however, so they're stressed out, but they may see they do better with like short amounts of sleep because it's whenever their body kicks into this state there. But in terms of the recovery part, does sleep deprivation or poor quality sleep impede recovery?
Yes.
Okay.
Sleep, when it comes to recovery, is the most important. So again, I want everyone who's listening to understand, if you're really paying attention, nutrition is the number one component when it comes to everything, all components of health, whether we say sleep, exercise, nutrition, chiropractic, mindfulness, which is, we can say yoga and breath work and things of this, sleep, okay. Nutrition is number one. When it comes to recovery, when actually recovering from inflammatory insult to the body, that wasn't something that you ate. So let's say you exercise, whatever, everything's good, you're just exhausted, your body's sore, that back is bothering you. Outside of, this is not the get adjusted and then sleep conversation. This is the get rest. Efficient rest is the only way you'll ever recover from any of these physical ailments. Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that because I have a few clients who use the device, the Whoop. Yep. This is not sponsored. Yeah. The Whoop device, and it definitely connects that in terms of like their recovery score or whatever. And if they've had a poor night's sleep, it impacts their recovery score. They get a bad score there because it really leans heavy on that rest and the quality too of rest, not just the number of hours, the quality of rest in terms of reducing their inflammation, but also that predictive algorithm of how well you perform your next workout. So it would recommend you do more of a lower intense, workout on the day that you didn't rest to try to get you back up to that recovery zone there. So definitely makes a huge impact. And then not just the data, but just speaking to my clients who use the Whoop, they're like, absolutely. Like I tried to ignore what the Whoop recommended for me. Mm-hmm. Like I know my body than this thing. And they went into their usual workout. They're like, it was horrible. Like towards the end, I was like just barely pulling through. Any other time I could do it. Mm-hmm. And just even a personal perspective, there's times I've hit races back to back, running, trying to get my miles in. And then I just took like a week off and then resumed, normal programming, came back stronger because my body needed that time to recover and also that sleep, there. So yeah, absolutely. Definitely aids in the recovery aspect of it. So with that said, just curious, you mentioned diet, prioritizing diet, mm-hmm. It's the pillar, the cornerstone of making sure that you perform well, you heal, all the things. Let's talk about protein, consuming enough protein. Mm-hmm. Most people believe you should just eat as much protein as possible to repair muscle and all those things there.
Yeah.
What's your thought process on that in terms of inflammation and the rebuilding of the muscle and all of that?
So I'm going to give the very superficial, or I should say surface level answer that I think the audience will be able to, digest, no pun. And I made a video briefly about this earlier in the week on my Instagram. So there's two things. Number one, protein is vitally important as we age, and I think the evidence is clear, right? Just from a perspective for everyone listening, it is, when you're 40, 50 years old, you better make sure you start getting in your protein as much as humanly possible, and also do some resistance training, because when you slip and fall or lose your balance, or have an injury that you don't recover from as you get older, that's how you break a hip, that's how you fracture your shoulder, that's how you can't fall on an outstretched arm and catch yourself. A lot of bad things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And prioritizing that balanced diet and anti-inflammatory foods, not just meat.
Right.
Because I know there's a trend out where we're doing the carnivore diet or whatever. We just leaning heavy on meat there. That does not do well for your joints at all. Just
meat, like animal meat, not doing well for your joints?
Just like excessive amounts.
I would. How should we say? I'm not necessarily. I'm not saying anyone should do carnivore, but I would disagree. Like, why would protein or animal protein? I understand excess amounts.
Excess.
Okay.
Speaking about excess.
Okay. So then, so the way that I interpret that, right, is excess protein that cannot be digested, that leads to inappropriate metabolism, right? High blood sugar or high glycogen stores from the liver, that creates too big of an insulin surge, keeping too much weight, but also inflammation. And that inflammation taking it out on our joints.
Yes, that's exactly where I'm going with this.
Okay, so then we're totally on the same page.
I know you were going to try to.
The only other thing I was going to say about protein, right? Eating more as we age, so we have lean muscle. But really, I do think that it's also overconsumed.
Yes.
For the reasons that I just said. So without even really backtracking, if anyone listened to exactly what we just said, that's how it's overconsumed or over relied upon. Because look, I already know this again for a fact because I have a family member who had a gastric sleeve.
Okay.
And for her protein requirements, her nutritionist or dietitian at the time was having her eat protein bars and shakes because that's what was, we'll just say, doable in her busy schedule. Yeah. Her protein numbers and labs, like always, were met. Like they were shown definitively to have enough protein consumption and absorption, is what I mean to say. So, drink your pea protein, have your egg protein, have your whey protein, do what works for you. Yes, you can overconsume protein. Yes, it can turn on inflammatory genes, if you will, or processes, and take it out on your joints 100%.
Yes. So the biggest thing is prioritizing the foods that's going to help you heal. It's going to come with phytonutrients to help you push the macros where it needs to be, but also do that healing process there. So that's obviously going to be, I'm not trying to make everyone vegetarian, but there's things like, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, things that's whole, so that way your body can actually get the whole nutrients, whole food perspective, so whole foods, minimum processed foods, but also too, whenever you're looking at your protein options, making sure those protein options comes with healthy fats. And that's the biggest thing, is that some of the unhealthy fats, like the saturated fat, that does horrible, does a number on our joints there because of those inflammatory fats. So, and healthy fats coming from like your fish, your nuts, your seeds, your healthy oils. Those are the ones. That's going to also not just help you rebuild and repair muscle, but also hormone regulation. Yeah. As well.
And I think for the people that are listening, like a real simple way to even consume what Russ just alluded to is just look at a chart at something like the Mediterranean diet, right? Just look at a picture or the top foods of Mediterranean diet. And even if you never consulted one of us or anybody to help you, turn some things around, just going off that chart will give you a ton of what Russ just said, what you just said. So,
yeah. And it's just how our body's designed to utilize food, is in a whole food way. It's not used to breaking down things so quickly. That's stressful, that's inflammatory on the body. So if you are eating things in its whole form as much as possible, not saying that you can't have a protein bar or protein drink or whatever, not saying that, but in terms of your foundation of your food should become from a whole food perspective.
And can we talk about that, or do you have another question?
Go for it.
Yeah. So as I said, been consuming a lot more information. I'm kind of getting back to the old Dr. Pearlman, exercising every day, prioritizing the office, prioritizing content. Not that I wasn't prioritizing everyone. It's just when you're healing from what I went through, it's a lot. And even Russ was talking about dealing with long haul COVID stuff. But I did the same thing. This, I understand. And a lot of us out there are dealing with this. And this is why we want to make this content. So one of the things I was going to say is, you talk about having a foundation, whole food diet, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost so commonsensical that it's almost ridiculous to look at the numbers now that almost 75% of adults are overweight and obese. Yeah. And I don't mean even 75% overweight or obese. No, we're going to roll this into one, not saying the same thing, everyone, but 75% of us adults are overweight and obese. Do you know how bad that is? I mean, now I get a little bit worked up where I'm almost I want to start dropping F-bombs and accusing everybody, but I'm not going to. Apple gave me the opportunity in Spotify to pick explicit or clean. This series is clean.
Good.
And the whole thing is this. We know more now about nutrition than we ever have. And we are in worse condition physically than we have ever been. And it is so paradoxical because I actually believe that a lot of the listeners and a lot of people, including, me and whoever else, we knowingly are making mistakes and maybe can't help it. So I just I don't know. I don't want to, because I can go on for hours, because we can talk about how children are probably up in, is it 40% overweight obese now?
Yeah. I think it's around there. I did fact check myself, but it's high. Yeah. But also too, just in my realm, my scope where I practice, in diabetes, it's expected that those under 21 years of age, the prevalence of diabetes is going to increase by 700% by 2050.
That number is just crazy. 700%. Yeah. 700%.
I was just shocked when I saw the statistics. I was like, are you kidding me? And just recently I was reading, I think it was a New England Journal of Medicine or something like that, where they're doing trials of GLP-1s on adolescents between the age of 12 and 18.
Okay, so what do you think about that?
So many things run through my head. Obviously, yes, it's an issue. Obviously the numbers are coming out saying that 700% increase in those under 21, so adolescents, under 21, going to have diabetes. And they're seeing that, the root cause of it is related to obesity, right? They're trying to, basically keep them out of the pipeline of getting diabetes, right? But it goes back to what you're saying, we don't have a knowledge deficit in terms of nutrition.
Facts, as you like to say.
Yes. We don't have a knowledge deficit, but in terms of, it's so multifactorial in terms of how food is marketed, but also to the value of nutrition. Yes, we know all these things, but we live in a world to where everything's convenient. We focus on convenience food. Cooking is now a lost art. I can't tell you the number of people that come to me who don't like to cook, can't cook, don't have a pot pan to cook in, not because they can't afford it. It's just I do DoorDash, I do Uber Eats. It's convenient, that sort of thing. And also too, just the access with children is access. Yeah. Because they don't have the money to buy all these whatever. Yeah. It's it's what's quick and easy there. So yes, we have information overload, but nothing that's really, I guess, put into practice in a way that's focusing on the future. We are the right now era. Yeah. How does it make me feel good right now versus thinking about how many years of good health my health span, is it going to extend my health span versus just eating just to get to the next few hours or whatever and you're hungry again. So I can go down the rabbit hole when it comes to that.
I think, and you know what? I think we should, because I'm actually emotional. Like, I'm not going to cry, but I'm emotional in the sense that you, like, right now we're pulling on the strings, the stuff that, like, I've lived, I've seen, not just from, I'm not, we all have grandparents. Yeah. I'm sure you have family members.
Yeah.
And okay. So number one, people don't know this about me, but I love wrestling. Especially growing up, like wrestling, like I loved the Attitude Era of wrestling in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Like WWE?
WWE, formerly WWF. So my favorite wrestler of all time, and I think that there's nobody better than him. If it wasn't for him, there would be no wrestling as we know it today, was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, yes.
And do you remember Stone Cold when he would flip him I got to keep it.
Got to keep it clean.
Got to keep it clean. He'd flip the bird to McMahon, right? Yes. He was like anti-establishment. He was like the anti-hero. And he would claim the bear and the glass shatter.
Yes.
I think we as a culture, society, whatever, need to do that to not just big pharma, such a cliche thing to say, and like big food. We need to literally say, I'm sorry, nice person that has this accessible food that's not good for me. Flip them the bird. And then we need to start doing that by going to like the local Indian bodega, well, bodega is a Spanish mart, but the little shops where they have like low-priced rice and low-priced vegetables. Go to the farmer's market that someone has like the non-middleman accessible groceries and snacks. Because, again, to go deep, right? I'm not telling you something that, well, I hope I'm telling you something that you didn't think of, but then just think about this. Oh my God, I've got to run, I got to whatever. I'm going to have a Builder, whatever protein bar with all these fake sugars and all this stuff that's going to spike my blood sugar and insulin just as bad, especially if you're not planning on running, a 10K within the next few minutes. So you know what you should do? Make sure you have some almonds and pecans and seeds on hand, or a bag of apples, whatever, that's not going to go bad, or a banana lying around for the day, right? Like those are the big difference. That is Stone Cold flipping the bird to everyone we're talking about. Because then we're not just going to be the society of how am I going to get through the next 3 hours. I mean, am I making sense?
No, you're totally making sense. I definitely think you're alluding to the fact that instead of just passively taking the information in, just taking things as gold, we should start questioning, some things. There, like, what is the purpose behind this? How is it going to benefit me? Versus just saying, well, it says it's healthy. It says it, no. And even when it comes to just consumerism, in grocery store, I always say to my clients, the front of the package, that's just decoration, just to grab your attention. Flip it over, see what it actually says. You'll be amazed, by what's in it there. But also, too, I think our just, big food, big pharma is not set up for people to advocate, for themselves at all. It's more of just do what I tell you to do. Like, this is great, that sort of thing. I definitely think now that we're seeing that our children are going to be hit with a chronic condition that is traditionally thought something that hit in old age, is happening earlier. Now we're thinking about the lifespan of our children. It's going to be shortened, in terms of all the capacity that they are dreams that they want to outlive may be shortened, because you can't do anything without your health. I don't care who you are. You can't do anything without your health. I definitely think that it is time for us to advocate for ourselves and start asking questions and pushing back. And one of the biggest ways to push back is with your pockets. Mm-hmm. If we start demanding better quality products and, putting our money elsewhere and start going local where we can, it definitely will make a bigger impact to where things would change. But as long as we are feeding into it, no pun intended, it's going to stay the same, there. So I definitely think as our role in our field, you touch and manipulate people all day and talk to them in the most intimate way, where you're getting up close with them. And what I do in terms of helping them pull back the layers of their food relationship, we should definitely empower our clients to advocate for themselves, to see through the crap that's out there, because there's so much crap that's out there, and have higher standards, for themselves, not just accepting the diagnoses, challenge the diagnoses, what got me here, what's the root cause of this. And not saying that, medicine is not, I'm not anti-medicine, but it's one of those things where you should ask better questions and ask, what's the end game here? What role can I play in this? So that way I'm not reliant upon, certain things. So, but yeah, no, it is, especially in this field, because nutrition sciences as a practicing science as part of the healthcare community, as a formal part of healthcare, it's a relatively new science, because traditional medicine doctors, they're not taught nutrition and fitness. And so now we seeing more nutrition related disease come up, and now it's taking mainstream, but also is highly marketable. So you have to be careful about the things that you see, hear, and read. And it's one of the things that I tell my clients, like, just because I'm sitting at the table as the expert in nutrition, you are the expert when it comes to your body. You know how you feel, after you eat something or after you take a particular medication or whatever. Don't dim your light just because you don't have a certain title. It's called practice for a reason. We are practicing with what we have in front of us. What we're seeing now in terms of how we practice, 5-10 years from now, science will come out and say, you know what, that was completely wrong. And now we're practicing a different way. And so the only way that we can be effective in our practice is by having a collaborative approach, listening to our clients, our patients, or however, and adjusting the treatment plan to fit them. So we can't be pushing the agenda at all. So I encourage my clients to challenge me all the time. Yeah. Because that's how I get better, as a practitioner, to make sure that I'm doing something that's actually going to benefit them in the long term and not just speaking the line. Because, the man wants to speak the line. So, anywho, so not to get into a rant about that, but in terms of the things, listening to your body, when I alluded to that, because, being the expert with our body, a lot of us with exercise, we want to push through the pain.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it may be necessary, and sometimes it may be unnecessary. Is there a difference between good pain and the short-term pain versus you chronically in pain and you need to maybe get an adjustment, figure out some things?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, I think that one of the things, if I haven't spoken about it yet, but we definitely touched upon it. What are you trying to accomplish, right? So like for the listener, for every individual with their body, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Now, if you are a CrossFitter and you are trying to gear up for the regionals so you can compete at the highest level, there's going to be a good amount of pain associated with, progression and growth that you have to push through. But you can't go to the point where your fatigue and inflammation and injury and pre-existing chronic areas of injury are so vulnerable that you potentially, herniate a disc or push through to where you're injured. So that would be pushing way too far and suffering the consequences. However, if you are exercising and your goal is to build a better aerobic and anaerobic capacity, not the same thing, but they intertwine, then you need to be comfortably uncomfortable in the lungs. The muscles may be a little bit hot and sore. And if you're not feeling vulnerable or unstable, that's sort of getting in tune with your body. That's probably a whole other podcast and a whole other scientific subject matter to go down one day. But if you're not feeling vulnerable and your muscles are just on fire, and you're already trained to that point, and we talked a little bit about before the podcast, like zone 2, zone 3 stuff, but like getting into these zones where it's uncomfortable, that's not going to be something that injures you, but going beyond that anatomical integrity where you're feeling unstable to accomplish a task, that is how you get injured. And so that's sort of my answer. What are you trying to accomplish? And there's some examples.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, too, going to what are you trying to accomplish? I know we're talking the surface level for the general healthy, individual, however, but there are certain inflammatory conditions that people live with, whether it may be like fibromyalgia or PCOS or whatever, where they're in a chronic state of inflammation at all times. And so the exercise can kind of send you over, the cliff, there. So So I know we talked about this off of the podcast, but also the benefit of like cross training, some active recovery, just doing things a little bit different, just to take the strain off those muscles, whether it's like maybe swimming or Pilates, yoga, things like that, just to help.
Well, okay, so then in that regard, I do have to say that I do believe, and not just because I'm a chiropractor, but like chiropractic to me is the gateway of allowing the healing to kind of happen through like postural, not correction, but postural tone. So it's really like a nervous system of the tone. Think about being sympathetically overdriven and like, I'm in pain, like cortisol, stress, norepinephrine, sympathetic, stress, like can't sleep, inflamed, uncomfortable. Getting an adjustment will, that big adjustment, especially the ones that, like, because me, when I adjust, I make sure I, move a bone kind of a deal. Like, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, like, to me, what I grew up feeling, with the way that I know my patients have the best outcomes is when we move the right bone at the right time and put that parasympathetic, tension releasing tone. And then that will allow you to do things like active recovery, yoga. Now you can start stretching again because that joint isn't locked up. Now you can start running with, probably more ease and not feel like it's a burden. Yeah,
absolutely. Not putting excessive strain on those joints and muscles because things are aligned there. And definitely if you are training consistently in any realm, whether it's for a race or for a competition or whatever, the constant movement of those bones and joints and everything, something's going to be off kilter. And I definitely can attest, not to try to like toot your horn, but I can definitely say after adjustments, you definitely feel like a relief, and you get some of the best sleep afterwards too, because you don't realize how much you just been in an intense, like stressful state, because your body adapts to it and you just kind of like can brush it off like, oh, I just had a hard workout. But when you get a good adjustment, you're like, dang, I didn't know I was carrying that much tension in that particular muscle. I didn't know. So it's just kind of like that preventative maintenance, there is like a car, with the wheels on the tire.
That's what I tell all my patients, whether we like to admit it or not, everyone, we are a Lamborghini and I'm the mechanic.
Facts. Yeah. Facts. It is so true because, eventually you're going to need to balance those tires. Mm-hmm. Have to get in alignment, with your car. If you hit so many miles or so many months or whatever driving around, it's the same thing. This body that we're in is driving us around, navigating us around our day to day. And so we're going to need some rebalancing at some point there. Yeah, otherwise, you're going to start hearing some creaking and cracking. Yeah,
and the headaches and the vertigo, those are the spark plugs. You still see your chiropractor.
Yeah. Headaches and the vertigo, the spark plugs?
Spark plugs, yeah. What? Chiropractic for more than just back pain, for more than just alignment. Oh yeah.
That's a different discussion. I got a whole bunch of questions.
I'll do a podcast one day on vertigo. I will. Yeah, it'll be a good one.
Is it just? I know when guys is it like the crystals that you're resetting, or no?
No. That's benign positional vertigo, BPPV, like most common cause of vertigo, and they associate it with crystallization in the ears. I personally don't believe that. I might, one day prove myself to be an idiot, but I do not believe that whatsoever.
Don't believe what?
That this crystals in the air nonsense causing vertigo. I think it's a cop-out.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
There are so many different types of vertigo that to rely on like that being the thing.
Okay.
And I mean, Epley's maneuver, again, anyone listening to this, feel free to challenge, feel free to put something in the comments in YouTube and Apple and Spotify. I don't think that there's enough clear efficacy to the the Epley's maneuver to reposition crystals in the air, and I've seen it performed very poorly by PTs over time. Literally, I have been in front of PTs many a time performing this maneuver, and I don't feel it was working. But myself in clinic, I've had a lot of success with a high velocity, low amplitude thrust in adult patients suffering from acute bouts of vertigo with single-sided, unilateral chiropractic adjustments to a specific time, and have had probably like an 85% success rate with between 1 and 2 adjustments.
1 and 2 adjustments. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that guy's not bragging. That is just clinical experience. And I wanted to quickly I know, again, we talked about this, like more than just back pain, more than just alignment. So when I'm given the opportunity, I have to educate.
I get it. So all in all, just to kind of bundle up what we've talked about, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it's important to utilize inflammation for what is intended.
Utilize inflammation for what it's intended, or
like in terms of like if you have the right diet, right exercise plan, inflammation is necessary.
Yes. Inflammation is a necessary evil that will take place daily in our bodies.
Yes, and it's intended to help us to rebuild and recover if it's under injury or stress.
Absolutely.
And if we give it the right environment, meaning adequate recovery, progressive exercise, not just going ham, off the gates, there, and giving it the right nutrition to where, it's in the environmental, right nutrients and, mitigating some of the inflammation because you're eating slow and steady foods.
Yep.
All those things could help you manage the chronic inflammation that can result in disease, but also joint pain, muscle pain, poor performance. Yeah. Did I miss anything?
No. I mean, maybe sleep, but you said recovery. Recovery is sleep.
Yes.
So no, yes. I mean, no, you're 100% right. And Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing. It, literally, like, freaking love that movie. And by the way, like, do the right thing. If we do the right things, and a lot of the stuff we talk about on these podcasts and future podcasts and past podcasts, your body's going to take care of you.
No, that's the thing. Our body is going to do whatever it has to take care of us. Mm-hmm. That's the job. It's a miraculous meat sack. It's amazing. It's going to do what it is supposed to do, which is protect us, establish a homeostasis, whatever that may be. It's going to do its job. But like anything, it can get tired and worn down if we don't take care of it. So real quick, because I know that this is something that you probably are hit with. I know I am. What supplements have you seen in your practice that has helped with reducing inflammation, if any? Yeah.
The thing that I've seen, in my opinion, work the best is a magnesium malate for muscle, taken with fish oil after exercise. Okay. And of course, I'm a big advocate. I think everyone should make sure they're taking enough vitamin D. So if they need to take like 10,000 IUs, whatever a day, just like get the vitamin D3.
Vitamin D is definitely a powerhouse for sure. Every cell in our body has a receptor for vitamin D. Mm-hmm. And it works similar to, like, it's a vitamin, but it also works as like a hormone. Also helps regulate inflammation, especially if you have levels of insulin resistance. Those who do have insulin resistance typically have a lower level of vitamin D. Magnesium, in terms of agreeing with you, I definitely agree with magnesium. Now, you say magnesium malate for muscle. Yeah. Something that I often push is magnesium glycinate because of the high absorption, also helping better management of blood sugars. Yeah. But either way, depending on what your outcome, is.
I should probably use more magnesium glycinate.
It's amazing. It also helps with sleep as well, because most people who have elevated blood sugars, typically in the middle of the night, they don't sleep very well because of those counter-regulatory hormones that are secreted between the hours of 2 and 7. And so, so I agree. Fish oil, 100%, whether it may be like a plant-based one, ALA, DHA, make sure you have the right combination of that. Magnesium, either malate or glycinate, vitamin D, 100%. Get your vitamin D tested. Most people are deficient. 75% of people are deficient in magnesium, and most people, 75% or more, are deficient in vitamin D because we don't spend enough time outside. Wow. It's a sunshine vitamin, and we don't get enough sunshine. Especially if you have darker pigment, we need to stay in the sunshine a little bit longer. We are in Texas, and I am not going to stand outside for a good 25, 30 minutes in direct sunlight. I ain't doing it. So yes, definitely get your vitamin D tested, but just as a prophylactic measure, at minimum 5,000 IUs to get a therapeutic benefit. Vitamin D3 is definitely beneficial there. I just want to hit that because that's something that people always say, well, what supplements can I take?
Yeah, and then you know what? On the same token, a good DHA, fish oil, omega-3 fatty acid, the one that has the D3 built in as well, is Ultimate Omega. So again,
Oh.
No, what do we call
I'm
it?
not sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by anybody. You go to your local grocery store, one of the holistic Whole Food looking ones, and you buy your Ultimate Omega. I believe Nordic Naturals Ultimate Omega. So there you go.
Nordic Natural. Okay, that's a good one. That's one of the good ones. Well, as always, we are. If you're listening, most of you are probably may not. Some may be our patients or clients. So if you need something prescriptive, something customized to you, it's definitely advisable to reach out to Pearlman or myself, depending on what your need is, whether it's chiropractic or nutrition. Definitely reach out to us. Pearlman, what is your social media? Is it on this podcast?
Yeah, everything will be in the description of the podcast and the description in YouTube. And It's Dr. Pearlman TV. One word, Dr. Pearlman TV for everything. The name of the podcast is the Dr. Pearlman Podcast.
Perfect. And I am the fatloss.diabetes.dietitian as my handle on all social media platforms. I am mainly on Instagram. And my website is russpowellnutrition.com. And that way I can set up a free consultation to explore where are your gaps and where you need to build a bridge between where you are and where you like to be.
Boom. And with that, exactly at 1 hour and 11 seconds, we are going to be wrapping up episode 2 of the Dr. Pearlman Podcast, Dietary Diaries, with co-host Russ Powell. And everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Bye.